Dance. Dance is a way of expressing emotions such as joy or anger. In many societies, dance is used in courtship. Throughout history, dancing has also played a part in worship. There are two main kinds of dancing: social dancing for fun and relaxation, such as disco dancing, and dancing to entertain an audience, which includes ballet. Famous ballet year: the Bolshoi Ballet Company from Moscow performs Swan Lake left parenthesis 1946.
Swan Lake is one of the most challenging classical ballets ever written. It tells the story of Princess Odette, who has been turned into a swan by a wicked wizard. She is freed from the spell when a young man called Siegfried falls in love with her, but sadly, they both die at the end. The ballet is full of complicated pas de deux moves and other difficult steps, demanding much skill and concentration from the dancers. Swan Lake is one of the most popular ballets still produced today. Throughout history, many famous ballerinas have taken the leading role of the graceful swan.
Key dates: c. 15,000 BC. Stone Age rock paintings showed people dancing 3000–1000 BC. Ancient Egyptians used dance to worship their gods and goddesses. c. 1400 BC. Bull dancing and leaping was a popular entertainment in Crete. c. 500–400 BC. Spartan warriors in Greece danced. As part of their training, 1300s ballroom dancing emerged in the royal palaces of Europe. 1400 Ballo, an Italian dance with a storyline, became the earliest form of ballet. 1681 women were allowed to take part in ballets. 1700 the waltz developed from German folk dances. 1870 the cancan, a high-kicking dance, became very fashionable in France. c. 1900 American Isadora Duncan, the first modern dancer, developed freer forms of dance. 1920 tap, Charleston, jazz, and many other dance forms influenced by African American dancing became increasingly popular. 1930 jitterbug and jive were too lively, popular jazz dances. 1933 American dancer Ted Shawn formed an all-male dance company to show men as dancers in their own right, not just as supports for women. 1945 Latin American rumba, samba, calypso, and cha-cha were added to the established ballroom dances. 1950 rock and roll developed as a social dance, mainly for teenagers. 1952 American dancer and choreographer Merce Cunningham formed his own dance company. He used natural movement in his dances. 1960 postmodern dance developed in New York. It was experimental and often improvised. 1970 disco dancing became popular in Europe and the USA. 1980 break dancing and body popping emerged. Dancers spun around on their backs and heads, and imitated robotic movements. 1990 DV8 and other companies designed dances for television as well as stage. Find out more. Dance in worship. Early people probably danced to please their gods. Many Native American tribes danced to bring forth rain and good crops. In Australia today, some Aboriginals imitate the act of hunting in a religious dance performed before an actual hunt. Muslim dancers called whirling dervishes spin and dance as part of their worship. In some English villages in the spring, children dance around a maypole on May 1, a custom which can be traced back to the religious dances of the ancient Romans. The Romans used to dance around a maypole in celebration of Flora, the goddess of spring. Ballet. Ballet began in the 1400s in Italy, where it was a form of entertainment at court. It soon spread to France, which is where ballet, as we know it, really began during the reign of King Louis XIV. It is because of ballet's true beginnings in France that ballet terms, such as pirouette and pas de deux, are French. Ballet steps have developed in part from stately court dances, from folk and country dances, and also from the leaping dancing of acrobats and tumblers. A famous ballerina Italian dancer Carlotta Grisi, 1821–99, was one of the greatest ballerinas of the Romantic period, early 1800s. Amazing facts. Encore. The ballet record for the most curtain calls was 89, taken by Margot Fonteyn and Rudolf Nureyev after a performance of Swan Lake in Austria in 1964. Designer wear. The most expensive ballet costume was made for the part of the Chinese magician in Parade, first shown in Paris in 1917. Designed by the artist Pablo Picasso, the costume fetched $46,000 at auction in 1984. Used shoes. A ballerina who dances regularly wears out about 10 pairs of point shoes each month. Keep on practicing. During the average-length career, dancers practice for 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, in total, about 5.5 years. Double crosser. British dancer Wayne Sleep, born 1948, achieved 6 entrées in 1973, crossing and uncrossing his legs 6 times, while still in the air. Find out more. First ballet performance. Balthazar di Beaujolais, a talented Italian musician at the court of the French Queen Catherine de' Medici, is believed to have staged the first ballet. Called the Ballet Comique de la Reine, it was performed in 1582 in honor of a royal wedding. A great success. An entertainment lasting around 5.5 hours, the ballet told the ancient Greek myth of Circe, who possessed a magical power to turn men into beasts. The ballet included instrumental music, singing, spoken verse, and dancing. Since dance technique was very limited, amazing scenery and costumes were created to impress the audience. The ballet was a huge success, and was copied at many other courts in Europe. Russian ballet. In the 1800s, French dancers went to work in Russia, where excellent ballet schools had been set up. It was here that ballet really developed, combining the grace of the French style with the strength of the Italian style. For the first time a major composer, Pyotr Tchaikovsky, wrote music especially for ballet, which now became a work in several acts, with a wide variety of individual dances. Nutcracker Ballet. The English Royal Ballet performs the Nutcracker Ballet by Pyotr Tchaikovsky. Find out more. Russian ballet schools. In 1735, Empress Anne of Russia founded a state school of ballet dancing, which was run by a succession of French directors. There were eventually 3 state academies of dancing, in St. Petersburg, Moscow, and Warsaw, then under Russian control, but it was in St. Petersburg that the most exciting developments took place. World Ballet Center. In the 1800s, a French choreographer called Marius Petipa joined the Russian Imperial Ballet of St. Petersburg. His work there helped to make St. Petersburg the world center of ballet. He created ballets with amazing leading roles for women, such as Sleeping Beauty and Swan Lake, both with music by Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky, 1842-93. Romantic ballet. Under the influence of the Romantic movement, which affected all art forms throughout Europe during the early 1800s, ballet became much more expressive, combining mime with freer movements and gestures. The Italian dancer Mary Togliani, 1804-84, danced in La Sylphide, the first ever romantic ballet, in Paris in 1832. At this time female dancers began to dance on their toes. Floaty costumes. These ballerinas' costumes are like the one first worn by Mary Togliani. Modern ballet. Russian dancers brought ballet to its highest point of development. They also helped to modernize ballet. From 1909 to 1929, Russian ballet director Sergei Diaghilev's company, the Diaghilev Ballets Russes, revolutionized dance. Technique was developed to express emotion using the whole body, and all art forms involved in a ballet were blended together to create a harmonious whole. Blending art forms. This modern dance performance blends movement with light, color, and sound. Find out more. Founder of modern ballet. Isadora Duncan, 1878-1927, was one of the pioneers of modern ballet. She abolished the traditional short skirt and satin ballet shoes, along with the dance steps that went with them, and turned to ancient Greek dance and dress for inspiration. Ballet companies. Many countries have at least one or two well-known ballet companies, such as the Russian Kirov and Bolshoi, the French Paris Opera, and the US New York City Ballet. These companies all receive money from the government. Smaller, more experimental groups have been founded by individual dancers, such as Mary Rambert, who set up the Rambert Dance Company in England. Kirov Ballet. The Russian Kirov Ballet was founded in St. Petersburg, the world center of ballet. Find out more. Ballet at the opera. In the 1800s, ballets were often included in grand operas, especially in Paris, so that most opera houses had dancers on their staff. However, as ballet became more established, as an art form in its own right, theaters began to separate their companies into singers and dancers. Ballet training. Both traditional and modern ballet are very demanding physically, and training is a long and hard process. During the 1800s in Russia, ballet schools were run very strictly. Today, ballet classes take place in studios with wood or vinyl floors. There is normally a bar fixed to the walls to hold during exercises, and mirrors to check the position of the body. Ballet exercises. Dancers practice steps at the bar, which helps them to keep their balance. Straight back. Curved arm. Supporting leg held firm and straight. Lower bar for shorter dancer. Pointed toe. Leg turned out. Find out more. Famous ballet school. Under director Carlo Blasis, the Italian ballet school at La Scala Theatre in Milan became famous throughout Europe. Pupils, who were only accepted between the ages of 8 and 12, practiced dance for 3 hours each day, and mime for 1 hour. They had to agree to remain there for 8 years, and were paid nothing during the first 3 years. Choreography. The choreographer designs the shape or look of a ballet or dance. He or she decides which steps and movements will be used by the dancers to tell the story, or, if there is no story, to interpret the mood of the music through dance. Sometimes a ballet is created for particular dancers, and the choreographer includes steps that will enable them to show off their special skills. Step by step, a ballet teacher choreographs a sequence of steps for the class to practice. Find out more. Recording ballet steps. Ballets choreographed many years ago are still performed today by different companies all over the world. But until recently, there was no secure way of recording the steps of a ballet. Ballets were passed on by dancers and choreographers through memory. Because of this, many early ballets have been lost. Choreology. During this century, a number of different ways of writing down dance steps have been developed. This is called choreology. One of the most popular methods is Binesh notation. It is named after Rudolf and Joan Binesh, who invented it in the late 1940s. Binesh notation is written on a 5-line stave, like a music stave. It is placed below the music stave so that the music and the dance steps can be read at the same time. Dance. People have always enjoyed dancing, for sheer pleasure, and also as a social activity involving friends or members of a community. Most social dances are associated with a particular period, such as the 1920s tango, or the rock and roll dancing of the 1950s. Jazz dance. A jazz dance looks relaxed and easy, but the complex steps and routines need a great deal of practice. Early social dance. In the 1100s, dance developed at the courts of European nobles. Find out more. Dancing in medieval Europe. Despite the church's dislike of dancing, there were several outbursts of religious mania in medieval Europe when whole communities took to dancing in the streets, with people hitting their heads against walls or falling to the ground exhausted. Dancing to relax. In the medieval period, working people danced to relax after a hard day's work. They also celebrated important events, such as local fairs and festivals, with dancing. Children and adults danced around the maypole, performed sword dances, and took part in dance games such as Ring-a-Ring-o-Roses. The nobility developed slower, more sophisticated versions of the peasants' dances. Greek and Roman dance. Ancient Greeks danced at weddings, harvests, and also at victory celebrations. Dance also played a role in education and religion. Athletes and soldiers danced as part of their physical training. It was used as much for pleasure as for practical reasons. At first the Romans disapproved of dancing. However, later on they were influenced by the Greek love of dance. Fitness training. This stone carving shows Spartan warriors dancing to become fit for battle. Peasant and folk dance. Folk dancing is a type of social dancing that has become part of the traditions and customs of a people. Most folk and peasant dances developed among villagers and were handed down from one generation to the next in a particular region. The dances were not written down, but were preserved by performing them over and over again. As a result, they have changed gradually over the years. Mary cavorting. This painting shows peasants in traditional costume dancing at a village wedding. Dance in the 1800s. During the 1800s, new social dances, such as the waltz and polka, became very popular in Europe and the United States. Among the nobility, these dances were slower, less boisterous versions of peasant dances. In Vienna, the highly popular waltz inspired so many composers to write music for it that it became regarded as the city of the waltz. Social dancing in ballrooms became fashionable among the middle and upper classes. At the ball, the romantic waltz was the most fashionable social dance during the 1800s. It began in Germany and Austria. Ballroom dancing. Modern ballroom dancing represents the more formal aspect of popular dances of the late 1800s and early 1900s. Ballroom dancing competitions are held in the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe, where couples compete for titles at different levels. The competitions are divided into 4 sections: modern, sequence, Latin American, and freestyle dancing. Glitz and glamour ballroom dancers normally wear very glamorous costumes and heavy makeup. Tap dancing. Tap is an American dance. It began with African slaves mixing their own traditional dances with white people's jigs and clog dances. Later, black dancers tap danced in pubs and on the street, and by the 1870s they were performing in traveling shows. Tap dancers wear shoes with special plates fixed to the toes and heels. The shoes make a marked tapping sound when they touch the floor. Fast mover. A tap dancer moves quickly and with rhythm, using the whole body. It is important to understand where your center of balance is. Latin American. Most Latin American countries have their own traditional dances, many of which include steps from Spanish and Portuguese folk dances. Latin American dances include the cha-cha, the Argentine tango, the Brazilian samba, and the Cuban rumba and conga. The rumba may have come originally from Africa. Today, in the Western world, these are no longer truly folk dances, but have become part of ballroom dancing. Dancing the tango. The tango was the first in a series of popular Latin American dances. It is a very dramatic dance. The couple glide using long, slow and short, quick steps. World dance. World dance includes the primitive, national, racial, and folk dancing of people all over the world. In its earliest forms, dance involved clapping the hands, stamping the feet, or slapping parts of the body, all of which are still used in popular dance. In many areas, dance plays an important part in festivals and ceremonies. In the swing, square dancing is a traditional dance from the United States. Many of the moves involve swinging partners around. Dressed in striking red, these Maasai warriors are performing a jumping dance in Serengeti Park, Tanzania. Amazing facts. Shoulder dancing. In North Africa, belly dancers are judged by how well they move their shoulders. Restricted view. Judges at Irish jigging contests sit under the stage to assess the speed and precision of the dancers' steps. Baker cake. The cakewalk was the first African American dance to be taken up by white Americans. It developed from dance competitions where the prize was usually a cake. On the trot. Between 1910 and 1920, animal dances such as the chicken scratch and the grizzly bear were popular in the USA. Not everyone approved. A woman was jailed for 50 days for doing the turkey trot, a dance that was denounced by the Vatican in Rome, Italy. Some flamenco dancers can tap their heels at a rate of up to 16 taps per second. The fastest tap dance was 32 taps per second by Englishman Stephen Gare, born 1967, in 1990. The longest conga dance line was the Miami Super Conga in 1988, which consisted of 119,986 people. Australasian dance. Almost wherever there is singing in the Pacific Islands there is dance to accompany it, often for big groups in formation. Australian Aboriginal dance is affected by totemism, which means that certain dances can only be performed by certain tribes. The Maoris of New Zealand perform an energetic haka, a warlike posture dance accompanied by shouted phrases and responses. Skirts and shakers. These dancers in long grass skirts are from the Cook Islands in the Pacific Ocean. Find out more. Aboriginal dance. Aboriginal dances are sometimes closely connected with what were once important aspects of daily life, such as kangaroo hunting. These events are reenacted in great detail by dancers at festivals called corroborees, which are purely for entertainment and do not have any religious or other importance. British dance. The British Isles have their own varieties of country dances and children's singing dances and games, some of which have pre-Christian religious origins. English dances include sword dances and Morris dances. Scottish dancing is well known for its reels, which include slow strathspeys, fast reels, and the even faster Highland fling. Irish dancing also includes a reel, which is even faster than the Scottish one. Irish double jig. In Irish dancing, the upper body is very controlled, while the feet step and tap, creating intricate and exciting rhythms. Costume sewn with traditional Celtic designs. Hard tapping shoes. Find out more. Sword dances. Sword dances are not confined to the British Isles. Similar dances exist all over Europe, often associated with a play dealing with the theme of death and resurrection. The Morris dances may have evolved from sword dances, and it is thought that the origin of the name is Moorish, associated with Muslim peoples living in Northwest Africa, since one of the dancers traditionally blacked his face. European dance. Some dances are much the same across Northern Europe. The Norwegian halling, in which dancers kick a hat, is similar to other Scandinavian dances, as is the spirit of various Russian, Czech, and Hungarian dances. Around the Mediterranean, however, the differences are more marked. In Spain, each region has its own songs and dances. The bolero, fandango, and flamenco, which is influenced by Arabic music, each have a character all of their own. They are traditionally accompanied by castanets, guitars, and tambourines. Flamenco dancer. The flamenco is famous all over the world. It is a very sensuous and expressive dance. Indian dance. Posture is very important in Indian dance. The positions of the dancers' arms and legs and the angles of their heads all have deep emotional or mystical meaning. Indian dancers often produce complicated rhythmic sound patterns, called jatis, with their hands and feet. There is also an Indian tradition of dance theatre, called Kathakali, which normally involves 5 or 6 dancers. They wear costumes and headdresses and act out stories from Hindu mythology. Making moves. Indian dancers use their whole bodies. Their necks, wrists, fingers, and even their eyes move in time to the music. Precise finger position. Dancer imitates using a bow and arrow. Bare feet. Find out more. Indian dances. The Indian Nautch dance involves very little movement of the feet, but the body and arms make beautiful, expressive gestures. Dancing evil away. Devil dances, in both India and Sri Lanka, were traditionally used to get rid of evil spirits in certain forms of illness. Temple dancing. The Bharatanatyam dance was originally performed in Indian temples. It combines dancing in complicated rhythms with Hindu legends told in song and pantomime. The dancers use hand gestures that have different symbolic meanings. Native Americans. Song and dance have always been important to Native Americans for a variety of functions: to observe a death, to ensure a successful hunting expedition, or to mark the different seasons of the year. Pueblo Indians in the southwestern deserts performed rain dances, which involved handling live rattlesnakes. Plains Indians and other tribes took part in the famous sun dance, the purpose of which was to atone for sins or to honor the spirits. Sun dances often went on for days. Feathers and face paint. This dancer from New Mexico, in the USA, is taking part in a ceremonial dance. Face paint. Brightly colored feathers. Bells ring as dancer moves. Southeast Asian dance. Traditional Asian theater combines music, dance, pantomime, speech, and sometimes puppetry. Performers wear elaborate costumes and masks or makeup. Thailand has a tradition of classical dance drama called Khan, which involves telling a story through dance. No and kabuki are two popular forms of Japanese dance drama. Southeast Asian trance dances combine superstitions with Islamic, Hindu, and Buddhist beliefs, and the dancers literally dance in a trance. Thai dancing. Thai dancers use facial expressions and hand gestures to communicate the message of the dance. Complicated hand movements.